Yo, what's up guys, this is Characters, and we're doing a video today at 50 and L6 max, and the difference between this and a normal video, a live play video, is that I'm playing 3 tables, as opposed to 4, and in this 4th box, where there would normally be a table, we have a few little sort of notes, like bullet points, if you may, without the bullets. And these are basically notes I've made concerning changes I've been making to my game over this last month. And I feel like, well, many of you may not know this, but I was in Vegas for most of the summer. Didn't play online for quite a while. Before that I'd been quite complacent with putting in volume and, getting hands in. So my game suffered for it, my work ethic wasn't what it should have been, and I think I developed a lot of sort of, between the combination of not having a good work ethic and then being away for most of the summer, I think I developed a lot of sort of bad habits, and I just stopped looking at my game objectively and finding the faults in it, and sort of got a bit complacent. So these are points that I made concerning some work I've been doing with a poker friend of mine over the last month, and also on my own, and they're things I've really fixed in my game, and I really feel like these points have, not single-handedly, but largely have been what have allowed me to improve my game so much over the last month. That's why it's entitled Improvement. So what I'm going to be doing is playing these 3 tables here and going over the spots that come up as usual, but I'm also going to be referring to these points during downtime and looking for spots to illustrate them in action as well. My first one is my 4th point, don't 3-bet fold less readless. 3-bet fold less readless. So don't 3-bet fold so much readless, because people just really love to 4-bet bluff the first time when they're regulars at 50 and L. I've been over the spewy reg before at 50, no limit. So King Jack has some blockers, I have position. I could 3-bet, but one, I don't know how wide his under the gun range is, and secondly, people are maybe not so much under the gun versus cut off. Maybe they're not so loose in those positions, but certainly the first time they will be regs will be more prone to sort of play backy and stuff. The other thing is that this guy is not a full stack, so it could just be that he's not going to be folding too much to 3-bets. He may be a weaker player, and when weaker players open under the gun, especially if they're not like crazy aggro from all positions, they usually have quite a strong range, and one trait of weaker players is that they don't like to fold that strong range in the face of a 3-bet, because ace queen just looks too good to not see a flop with, so does 9s, so whatever. So you're not going to get the folds you're going to get from the more tighter taggish regulars. So that's why I don't like a 3-bet there. So size preflop opens accurately, that's the first point, and that's mainly going to be, it's going to be determined from who's in the blinds. If I have 2 nits, I should be min-raising my button 100% of the time. Similarly, if I have a 3-better in a nit, I should be min-raising my button all the time. If I have 2 3-betters or just 2 regs that don't flat very much out the blinds, I should be min-raising. I should also be min-raising to find out if they're going to flat, because if they're not going to flat and they're still going to play, 3-better fold to the min-raise, and that's pretty damn weak. It's pretty poor if they're going to play 3-better fold versus min-raises, so I should be min-raising to exploit that as well. So obviously when a nit continues against us, pre-flop, that's not where we make our money. We probably lose money in those spots because his range is doing so well against us. He has a very strong range when he does defend his blinds. So that's one thing. We are out of position here against someone who looks very tight so far. Looks like a weaker player who's very passive. I'm going to peel 4s here out of position, where I wouldn't normally against hijack open from a looser player, but because he looks so tight so far, although it's a small sample, I think the implied odds are a lot better for me than they would otherwise be, so that's why I like the peel there. So min opening the buttons is going to be pretty big. 1.25x in cutoffs. Before I was very generic. When I was complacent about my game, I got to the stage where I was very sort of here with King 3. Both of these guys look stationary. It's one of the stronger hands that I would fold there, but I'm still going to like to fold it. I think it's absolutely fine to fold it in that situation. Here we have a weaker player who I don't really know anything. I'm playing a fast table, which isn't a good idea for making a video, so I think I'm going to get off this table. I think 3-betting there is okay. I mean, he's weaker player, first sort of hand I've played against him. he hasn't been limping so far in two hands. He's probably not a huge station. I think I've got some fold equity in my hands. You know, it's like one of the best hands I could 3-bet bluff with in that spot, so I think it's fine. Flatting's also an option. Perhaps I'll get 3-way pot with that small blind who looks a little bit loose, but I don't think it's super great to flat. I think it's fine, but I think 3-betting is probably my choice there. And again, this doesn't really apply, this 3-bet fold less readless, because a shorter stack isn't going to be irregular. I'm not going to get 4-bet bluff, the stack isn't allowing it unless he jams. I don't expect him to be jam bluffing over my 3-bet, like just without history. It's a completely different situation. So there I think I've got more fold equity than I would against some random full stacked reg who decides he's going to mess about with me or whatever. Yeah, so I'm going to get off this table and just find you guys another table to watch where we are not under such extreme time constraints. I have been playing the fast tables a lot more recently because they're good for fish. A lot of fish, action junkie fish, really like the fast tables for some reason, so that's pretty cool. One other thing I've been doing is defending my blinds a bit more and then just looking to outplay people a bit more post-flop. You do have to be careful out of position. It's not something I'd recommend beginning players, such as a lot of you guys, to do, especially at like 5 and 10 in L. You know, you can fold your blinds a lot more, but a guy like this who is, for any of you playing 50 no limit or whatever, who's opening his cutoff and button so wide, like a third of the time in the cutoff, 70% button, he's stealing a lot, 10-9 suited. He's also, from the sample I have, never c-betting, which is great for us because we can either just lead to win pots or we can just check fold on boards that aren't so good for us and then take it away in the turn, and it's very easy to play against a player like this post flop. So this is just going to be a snap defend. Here's usually a check call. Now his continuation bet is like 1 time out of 7 that he's actually c-bet. So I mean, it's hard to say from that whether that's indicative that he will be shutting down here if he doesn't have something. But cutoff versus big blind, I don't know. I've got a feeling that variance has something to do with that. So I'm not as okay folding as it would be if I thought that was a bit of a more accurate stat with middle pair here. I mean, again, we don't know how often he's barreling turns. His c-bet is very low, so I don't even mind just folding to this c-bet. But I think there's nothing too wrong with peeling either when it's going to be the case that he's going to c-bet a fairly dry board like that very often, I would think, in these positions. I've got a feeling that c-bet stat, unless he's a very poor player, is going to be based quite a bit on variance. We get called here by the 30-16. This is pretty much just going to be a one and done spot for us. I'm just going to be checking back. On this turn there's not really much we can do. I mean, we have no idea what to do in rivers, out of position. I think the flop might even be a fold just because he never seems to c-bet. And he c-bets very quickly as well, so if he's not an avid c-better and he likes to check back a lot, he may think about that a bit more before c-betting if he does c-bet. So timing tells, that's one thing I forgot to add to this list that are also going to be very important. Timing tells are good. So yeah, I mean, I kind of just like folding the flop actually. We're not really like thrilled about our middle pair there against someone with such a low c-bet stat. And also, if we are going to get barreled on the turn, we have no idea how often he's firing the turn. So it's one of these spots where I feel like we're putting in money a lot to sort of... This guy is a good target for 3-bet bluff because he's folding to 3-bets, he's positionally aware and opening buttons a fair bit, yet he's quite nitty and probably not going to be the sort of guy that's going to 4-bet bluff us the first time just for the hell of it. That would be my read. He defends and we get a 10-7-6 board. We have a few options here. I mean, check calling is probably an option. His aggression factor is fairly high, but that's usually just because his range is strong. C-betting is also an option. I expect him to fold to c-bet fairly often this board. It protects our equity and stuff like that. So I mean, I could go either way on a board like this. I'm going to check call the flop. I don't expect this guy to fire like too many barrels at me if I start check calling here. I've also got a backdoor flush draw. I think a lot of his range is going to contain a lot of like Broadway hands, like ace jack, ace queen, king queen, hands like that we are doing pretty well against. So turn gives us more equity as well, so I think we can call 2 here pretty happily. He checks back the turn. I don't think there's any value in leading the river. It's going to be a check evaluate spot. I don't think he's going to call us, hero call us with ace high or with any crappy pair. I think we'll just check and try and get the showdown, and he has jack 10 suited, so that's fairly standard. That hand. His line I think is okay. I might bet the turn. I mean, I think my check call range there is usually quite weak. I think he can probably bet 2 streets for value there, and when the board's getting a little bit drawier, I mean, it's always good just to fire the second bet to protect your equity as well, especially if you can do it for value, but value of course being the main reason. So I'm going to take a note that he does defend with I mean, it's fairly standard, that defend. There are a lot of hands in his range that he will just be folding there. This is a spot that I'm not going to 3-bet because I do believe this guy falls under the category of the mindlessly aggressive reg who's just going to 4-bet us for no reason and stuff like that. And although he folds 75%, cutoff versus button, we have like pretty much almost the least fold equity, other than blinds versus button, where he has position, and it's the first time, and he's probably some 2+2 guy that likes to post about how the first time you should always take the most aggressive line because they are going to be doing the same. So the way to combat that is to just have it the first time, or just 3-bet jam or whatever, and that works well against these guys, and they are a common breed. They don't all fall into this category, but there's certainly quite a lot of them. 10-2 against this guy. He's folded his blinds 1 out of 1 so far. It's kind of marginal. I'm just going to fold for now. I mean, he looks fairly loose. If he was a bit tighter, I think I could open as wide as 10-2 suited there, but probably not against this guy the way he looks with the information we've got right now. So what else is on my list then? Timing tells should be on my list there. And one thing about timing tells, probably the most important thing that I've learned and sort of applied recently, is timing tell polarization in terms of timing tells. So if someone is really polarized in general, like on their river say, or whatever, even on the turn, their actions are going to be faster. If the river comes down and someone bets really quickly, it's likely it's the case that it's either a really easy value bet and they don't even need to think about sizing much, they're just, happily, quickly value betting, or they're bluffing. Because they know they're bluffing, they don't need to think about whether or not to bet as much. So they've got their mind made up about one of those two things. When they tank, not always, but it usually decreases the chance that it's a bluff if someone tanks, from my experience, just because a couple of reasons. Firstly, they don't want to look weak and tank down. If they tank down, they may give up on the bluff. Oh, I've taken too long now, it's not going to be a good spot to bluff anymore, or something like that. This guy's middle position range is like 20%. It's wide enough that I'm fairly comfortable just flatting ace-jack here. I'm not comfortable 3-betting it because he's folding a lot. It would just be as a bluff. I don't think it's great. So here's an interesting spot actually, and this is where I'm going to make use of this second point. This guy doesn't c-bet very much. So when he does c-bet, he usually has a fairly strong range. But I feel like he'll raise a donk here with like loads of any worse flush draw. He'll raise a donk with any sort of overpair. I mean, get loads more money into the pot. I don't think he'll fold to 3-bet if he does raise a donk there. So I think we can also get him to bluff raise sometimes. If we get him to bluff raise even like 25% of the time he has air, that's a huge amount of money. We just win when we ship over that with our draw, or when we 3-bet. We're obviously taking a 3-bet line there if that wasn't clear, sorry. So because he's not c-betting much, we don't actually forfeit that, from check raising against someone who does c-bet. We get the merit of picking up their c-bet by check raising against the air. But this guy's c-bet is very low over a reliable sample. So with him, it's more the case that he's going to be checking back and giving up with his air. Therefore, I like just leading and just taking down the pot, not giving the chance to make a pair or whatever. That's not a big concern there when we have so much equity. But, just taking down the pot now, we're not going to win anything from his c-bet anyway, so it's absolutely fine. And maybe we even induce from his air sometimes that he'll just check back and give up if we check, if he just for some reason plays back at donks. And some people do automatically play back at donks, so I like to donk quite a balanced range of sort of draws, monsters, and air. It's kind of polarized, if you see what I mean, but kind of balanced as well. Like one hand I wouldn't donk is like a middle pair type hand, like that's not going to be too good. This guy 3-bets us with 4s, it's a pretty easy fold. We don't have any information, he's not 3-betting. But we have lots of information, but we don't have information to suggest he 3-bets a lot. Calling's not good because he's given us a horrible price, and our implied odds here just aren't very good. And it's going to flop horribly, be very difficult to defend with. We don't even think his range is that weak in the first place, so fold equity plus pot equity post flop is usually awful. And when we get a set, it's not the case that we have deep enough stacks or he has such a tight range that we're getting that great a price for implied odds anyway, so that's kind of why it's a pretty good fold. So one spot I wouldn't donk in is with like a middle pair hand, because again, remember we said that we're donking partially to induce raises when we have draws and monsters and things. That's like an added bonus. We don't want to be doing that when we can't continue to raises, because we just have like medium strength hands. If we have air, it's fine, you know, we can just bet fold more happily if we just have minimal equity, but we don't want to be like possibly bet folding the best hand on the flop all the time, like a hand that we can check call profitably with. If someone's c-betting, we'd rather check and then just call our c-bets and get money into the pot against his air that way, not donk and either force him to fold his air that we're ahead of anyway, or possibly bluff us, or possibly put us in a terrible spot, or, you know, it just sucks. So, donking is good. Usually more polarized, with draws, with strong hands, and with air. Usually with air, I like to have, you know, overcards about their flush draw. These things help, certainly. They allow us to fire multiple barrels if someone just calls us. And yeah, a lot of people do play fair fold versus donks because they just don't know how to react to them, really. So I think donking is pretty underrated. People don't do it enough. I certainly didn't do it enough, so I'm finding more spots where it's better. There's an inclination in poker. Oh, you're check to the razor, check to the razor. Yeah, sometimes. And there are reasons for that. Again, it's one of these live statements I hate so much, and I always bitch about how stupid live players are when they come out with these sort of bog standard cliches and don't even understand why they're saying them. You know, check to the razor. You can ask someone why that is and they won't be able to tell you. The implications of it, if you understand it, are that you'll get a c-bet out of the razor's range. You know, they're going to put in that bet anyway, so let them do it, type thing. But that's not always the case, and even when it is the case, there's sometimes better arguments to donk. So this is an awful sort of button spot for weak hands, just because we're always getting action from these two guys. 10-7 suit, offsuit, just to let that go. Be tightening up my button range a little bit in this case. So button sizing here, going back to point 1. 3x, a bit bigger because this guy likes to flat more, and we want that to be more of a mistake for him to be flatting us. He's not 3-bet or fold or anything, so there's no need to be min raising here. We're just quite happily 3xing, c-bet the flop. We're going to bet fold this turn. I think his range is fairly inelastic here, and it'll be calling. I'm going to make quite a big turn bet, because I think he'll be calling the same range to most bets. I mean, he calls the flop quickly, so I think he has like Queen Jack, he has like pair hands like 10x, like Jack 10, Queen 10, King Queen, King Jack, all these hands. He also now has 2-pair. He has like a bunch of 2-pair, bunch of straights. 7-8 got there. If he calls the flop with that, Queen Jack got there. So when we get raised here, this is like the death line, as I call it. You know, was it that guy that defended my 3-bet? I don't think it was. That was someone else. I didn't mean to put that note on him. Anyway, this is a fold because we're just crushed here all the time and we don't have equity. We're drawing dead most of the time, basically. We don't even have any equity to improve. It's just the case that he usually has 2-pair, a set, or a straight. And yeah, he's a very passive player who's taken a very, very strong line that no passive player takes as a bluff, and nor will one take it for thin value. So basically we're crushed in that spot, and that's a pretty easy fold for us. Like, don't be reluctant to let top pair, top kicker go in such a spot. A fairly small c-bet here. I mean, I think it should even be smaller. I should probably just make this like $2. There's no reason to make it $2.25 there. You're just sort of burning 25 cents when he actually has a pair or a better ace high that he won't fold. Usually a one and done spot, although on certain runouts it's conceivable we could fire more, but our equity sucks there. There's loads of hands he's just folding out immediately, so it's a pretty good one and done spot. This net. Yeah, I'm just going to 3-bet. Out of position. I mean, in position. I think he is folding a lot to that 3-bet, like a nitty player who seems kind of positionally aware so far, but, you know, post-flop he's also going to be nitty. It's also going to be hard to extract value there, so I think we just have to 3-bet out of position there with kings, and it's going to be pretty much slightly the best play. Here with king deuce, I'll go ahead and open. I don't know much with this Z-donk guy. And the other guy's folding his small blinds a lot so far, so just 1.25x here. That's like my default if I know nothing about the blinds. It's like sort of in the middle between my two sizes, between my 3x and my min raise, and I think it works quite well for that reason. Obviously a lot tighter on this table in the button because we have a maniac 3-betting, flatting, not folding, basically. It's very hard to win pots with air when people don't fold. That's a good common rule for poker. So, find spots to donk, we've been over that. Triple spots, triple barrel spots, that refers to. Oh, my coffee's going cold, man. I always pour coffees and then giant ass strong cup of coffee, like really good. It's gonna really improve my mood and my concentration. I make it specifically for the video, and then I leave it sitting on the table and don't even drink the fucking thing, so. This is a good spot for cold 4-bet bluff. Only, the problem is that these guys don't like to fold to cold 4-bets in good spots for cold 4-bet bluffs. They like to jam over them because you're obviously bluffing, right? Oh, I so want to do it. I just don't trust this guy. I know he 3-bet jammed 10s versus me, and I think he's jamming his whole value range for 4-bet. So I'm not going to. But if I thought he was more straightforward but had a 3-bet bluffing range, I'd definitely cold 4-bet that spot. It's definitely a good spot for it. Ace 10 here, meh. Table kind of sucks for opening it. I've got 3-betters and nets and short stacks and stuff. It's not like very tight players and things. Don't have any fish to target by opening it, so it's not going to be great. Here we flat a... What do? We flatten a middle position open with 6s. This kind of board, like, I'm just going to make a small bet for just to protect my hand. I mean, I think this guy's just folding like most of the time here. I don't want to let a card roll off and then he bets a turn and we have no idea what to do in like a jack turn or a queen turn, or you know, he makes his hand the turn a kind of a reasonable amount of the time, although not that often. But so often on that board, I think he's just check folding his range, all his overcards have equity, so I just want to force them away from their equity, basically. I don't think he has too many hands that check call that board that are better, mainly because 9x and 7x aren't a big part of his opening range. He's a nitty player. He doesn't open 9x and 7x there very frequently, so better hands aren't check calling us, so that's, I don't expect him to check call like top pair there or an overpair. So basically we just have the best hand and he's check folding most of the time. I also don't think he's funky enough or fancy enough to be I'm going to fold this hand, it's close, but just because I have hands going on other tables. This guy 4x's here and he looks so bad. I just want to get more money into the pot now. I'm going to make a 3-bet for value, and I'll just be getting this in against the stack. I think he looks very spazzy. I also expect him to continue with his whole range. Here I'm going to just check and not fold, kind of regardless of what he does. I think he has a lot of worse overcards, a lot of unpaired hands, and he's just going to be shoving them or stabbing them here. So it may seem weird to you to just check call this flop all in or check jam this flop all in, but I think it's fine. We've got 2 overcards, we've got good equity. The $2 bet is very, very strange. I mean, it's just pretty bizarre. This guy goes ahead and bets the river after checking the turn. Does he check ace-x on the turn? I'm not too sure. He's opening blind versus blind pretty frequently. So, I mean, I don't even think he bets king-x here, so I think he has air here, decent amount. Obviously, a set of kings is going to be fine. But I think he bets ace-x on the turn, and he doesn't bet king-x in the river, so I think a lot of his range is just air there. That's why I make the call. He does have some random 2 pairs and stuff that he's made on the river too. I just think I have the best hand here way too often. I'm just going to raise to protect my equity, slash just get it in, and I'm pretty fine with that. I wanted him to put in a bigger bet than that, basically, so he could then... Oh, now we have like 590 left, which kind of sucks when he calls. I don't see any choice. Like, we can't actually fold at this point. His range is still fairly wide, and sometimes you'll have worse hands like that, and that's all good. But I feel like I'm not ever folding post flop after I make that 3-bet. I've made the 3-bet because his value range is going to be, his opening range is going to be seriously wide. Also think he's terrible and he's going to stack off with like ace high and stuff post flop, which is good for me. This guy 3-bets, he's been 3-betting his blind like fairly often. C-betting not so much, 100% 3-bet pots. With queen 10, I mean, it's kind of close-ish. I'm just going to fold for now. If I had queen jack suited, I think I'd definitely defend there. But he's not 3-betting like so much overall that it's that big a deal to me. King queen suited, a hand like that would definitely defend as well. So his range on the flop is going to be, he's going to stab with like any two cards basically. So if I'm ahead pre-flop, I'm still ahead on that flop given all the random unpaired stuff he has. So instead of betting myself and letting him like jam over me and like put me in a kind of blast spot and then make him fold his air, I want him to put in another bet with his air. That's why I check, and this is a common line that I'll take in these situations. I think it's good. So that's why I check to allow him to. Does this guy squeeze very often? Squeeze 4%. That's not too considerable. I could be dominated a lot here. I think he's getting a good price for a lot of his hands just a flat, and he's squeezed 3-way, and he's quite fairly tight player. So I'm just going to fold the king queen, especially getting such a bad price and having no room to maneuver post flop or anything. I'd assume this squeeze will take it down like all the time. So sorry, I'm getting a little bit distracted. I thought 3 tables would be less action, but it's still, when you're talking a lot, it can still be quite distracting. So better bring this hand up before you all forget. On the flop, I still think he has a bunch of random Broadway hands, random overcards, random king 6 suited, just XX basically, just almost any two cards that look remotely playable pre-flop. I think he'll fold to my 3-bet almost never, so he's going to have his whole opening range when he calls the 3-bet. That's why I do it for value. I'm happy to get it in as well. I think he'll shove worse. He just looks like an utter spaz. So yeah, and on the flop I checked him. That enables him to put in a bet with all that air when we're slightly ahead of his range and have equity when behind, and we then just jam over it. I was hoping on the flop he would bet more than this. This bet was kind of lame. I'm obviously never folding. I could have just called this $2 bet. My raise was just kind of like random. It was essentially just all in. I just did it out of haste. It doesn't make too much difference. He's always getting the rest in on the turn anyway. So I could just flat here and allow him to keep bluffing with air, but I feel like he'll just get it in with any 6x, any 8x, any 3x even, like hands as bad as that, ace 3 hands as bad as this, so it can't be too bad to get it in, and it protects my equity when he has like king 10 and isn't calling anything else, isn't putting much more money into the pot anyway. Yeah, we don't want to just let him have a free card. Here we have like a tight ass player flatting, which can be a lot of pocket pairs that we can squeeze out, and we have an under the gun opener who I think we can represent a lot of strength here. This is kind of as a bluff, this squeeze. I don't want to flat ace queen 3-way against strong ranges. It's not going to play very well. It's going to have some reverse implied odds and not be great, but it has good blockers, and it's got some, I think the squeeze has a lot of sort of merit in that I can just get these guys to fold, but it's kind of marginal. I don't think folding there, I think it's a squeeze or fold spot essentially. I don't like flatting there. I think it's fine to just go ahead and fold. Okay, so we get a fairly good flop here. Problem with it is that there aren't a lot of worse hands that can call us on this flop. I don't expect them to have any worse ace-x in their range or anything like that. So, what to do? I don't think I can get called by too much worse, but I also don't think they're going to bluff at it very often, so I make a smallish bet that hopefully gets peeled by some sort of ace-jack or some sort of, like, I don't know, king-queen hand, something like that, and bet in to protect my equity as well, and just to, yeah, I guess kind of for value. I guess this guy can have a few worse hands. There's not very much left here at this point. I don't think we have too much choice but to be getting this in. I think he could have some worse aces. His ace-jack suited, something like that. Maybe he can have king-queen. I'm going to bet small again, just so he feels like he can't fold. I won't want to jam and force him to fold a hand like ace-jack, king-queen or something like that. So although there's only a pot-size bet left, I still think it's better to just bet small here and just make him feel like he cannot fold for this price, basically. With those weaker hands, he does fold, but I guess he has like some kind of king X hand there. But if he has ace 10, ace jack, I don't think he often has a better hand. He may have like ace king sometimes, but I don't think he has aces kings ever, like sets or anything. So I feel like we're splitting there a lot, or he has like ace jack suited, ace 10 suited. So I don't want to jam and let him fold. So just make it. I think he's a weaker player as well, so hopefully that won't scare him off too much. But I think what I should probably do is just bet the flop like $4, just to ensure maybe even get peels from like jacks, and then bet the flop like $5, make it smaller than what I did. I think that's the optimal line, and then bet the turn like small again, then shove the river. I think that's probably better if I'm going to just try and get it in against that guy. Here against some passive station who never seems to fold to c-bets, he's probably not folding any better hands at all. So I'm just going to check back and utilise my showdown value here. I don't think we ever get a better hand to fold or a worse hand to call us on the flop. Now though, we can just go ahead and start happily betting for value. Table 3 is pretty standard. Right, triple barrel spots, so try and get onto that now. So a lot of times people will call 2 streets in these games and not 3. A lot of people fire 2 streets as a bluff and not 3. This is just an easy value bet now. A lot of times people call 2 streets and not 3. And I found myself, remember these are sort of adjustments to things I was doing wrong in my game, and I found myself sort of just 2-barreling in spots where people expected me to 2-barrel a lot of the time. And then shutting down rivers. Spots where your opponent's range is capped and they have a lot of sort of pair plus draw hands that can call 2 but not 3. They have a lot of middle pairs or weak top pairs even that can call 2 but not 3. And I wasn't taking advantage of these spots. And I'm again, you know, take these words with a grain of salt. I'm not saying that you should go and start. 4x here is kind of unfortunate. I'm just going to fold. If it was 3x I'd be getting a better price. I'd come along there, but 4x, don't think my hand's quite strong enough for that price. So take this with a grain of salt. People in lower limits or stations like don't start 3-barreling all the time. I'm basically just saying that one of the leaks in my game was that I wasn't taking advantage of spots where my opponents could call 2 but not 3 bets, and I wasn't formulating a plan to fire 3 bets. There's a lot of spots where you should fire 3 or none, because after your opponent calls the flop, they have a lot of these second pair hands that are calling turns necessarily, and not so much top pair, or sort of pair plus draws that are like good enough to call the turn, but when they brick the river they can't call, and hands like that, you know. This is marginal king 8, but it's just about an open with these 2 in the blinds. So now I'm starting to take advantage of a few more of these spots. This guy I've been 3-betting the absolute shit out of. I kind of just want to keep doing it and see if he's going to react. But I've been doing it a lot. I mean, I think he is likely going to react quite soon. So again, this guy's very passive. King high, I don't think he even folds ace high, such a station. King high is showdown value. I'm just going to try and show this down. Like, I don't think he's going to fold any better hands when I bet the flop. I don't think he'll fold ace high or any pair. I'm not barreling a station like this. We've just seen his station. I have showdown value against a lot of his range. I'm just going to go to showdown. He's also very passive. I don't think he's going to stab the turn. His calling range is far wider than his betting range on pretty much all streets. So given I don't think he's going to stab the turn, I can just fold should he bet the turn and be pretty happy about that, basically. This situation with ace king sucks. It's just a really awkward spot. Stack sizes have dictated the very annoying awkward situation here, basically. I'm going to assume that because this guy's passive, he isn't going to jam like ace queen on me, king queen here. I'm going to bet to just try and take down the pots the times he's missed the flop, and I'm going to just bet fold because he is so passive, and assume that when he raises me here he has like jack x or an overpair or some sort of pair that he's felting. I could check fold that flop. I think that's the other option, but then I'm giving him free cards. I'm also giving him an invitation to just bet and take down the pot with inferior Broadway hands and aces and things like that, so it's kind of awkward. If he was a more fishy, spazzy looking guy, I'd take exactly the same line I took before and I would just check raise that flop, but I don't think he is, so I don't think that's going to be as good, basically. And there's a lot of jack x he can have there. He has more top pair hands than the fishy guy had in the last instance of that spot, so those are kind of differences. Right, remove from I've been over these two, so I'll move on to this one. Remove from comfort zones. So this is like a lot of regs, for instance, they're not used to seeing people donk. They're not able to handle donking because they're not used to it. So I've started incorporating that more, and if you find that someone just folds every time you do this, or maybe they can't handle 3-betting, or they can't handle a certain thing that you're doing, or they're unfamiliar with you check raising the flop as a pre-flop raiser, and makes them spaz out and do all kinds of dumb stuff. So if you have a read like that on someone, I think this point's important. It's good to get. It's like when you play heads up. When I made my heads up videos, you always wanted to remove your opponents from their comfort zones, and we always tried to do that from the start of the match. That was always my strategy when I played heads up. And 6 max, you can still apply it sometimes as well. So it's a way of exploiting your opponent, just getting them to make as many mistakes as you can. Smoking one of these electronic menthol cigarettes right now. It's very strange. I've been cutting down smoking, and one of the things I've been using are these. But it's very easy to smoke a lot of them because they sit on your desk, so when you're grinding, or when I was writing my essay earlier, I'm just grabbing this thing and smoking on it, and it's a little bit dangerous in terms of nicotine intake, but it's far better for you than smoking a cigarette because it has like 1,000th of the different chemicals that a cigarette has. It has like 3 chemicals in it, and cigarettes have like thousands or at least hundreds of chemicals. I'm not sure exactly how many, but a lot. So if anyone's a smoker, I recommend these things. They're pretty cool. King 9 is going to play okay multi-way. It's just this guy might squeeze. I don't really want to risk this guy squeezing. This guy, however, I like to play pots with such a station. This guy doesn't see it much. It will play quite well multi-way. It's certainly quite close to just cold call in position here. Again, I don't like 3-betting because I think this guy is just going to be an idiot against it fairly often. Fold to 4-bet 0 out of 2, 3-bet 11% in the big blind. Nah, I'm okay just folding. I'm okay folding here as well, but I think flatting's fine. If this guy wasn't here, I'd certainly flat, and I'd be happy playing a multi-way pot with a station and a guy who's going to play quite fair or fold after the flop, it looks like, so it should be quite easy to play. And is opening very wide in the cutoff, remember, that's the important thing. King 9 is doing badly against tighter opening ranges, but someone's positionally aware. Oh, he's not opening too wide, but yeah, it's probably a fold. So on this Queen 9 X board, we can get, it's kind of marginal to c-bet, we can get a lot of sort of smaller pocket pairs, 8s and below. It's a lot of combinations, we can get those to fold. Should be a reasonable part of his calling range. We look fairly tight on this table. I think we get a lot of respect. I don't think we get messed about with much on that board when we c-bet, having ran 15-13 for the last 50 hands. So, and we've got backdoor draws there, did we? I think we had backdoor hearts. No, we didn't. But anyway, we've got some backdoor straight draws and overcards, and we can barrel certain turn cards and things, so I think it's okay to c-bet. I think it's probably marginally plus EV. So yeah, those are the things I fixed in the last 2 weeks. I'll be looking this month to be doing more work in my game and hopefully fixing some more stuff as well. This will be just about an open, but pretty thin. Pretty much the bottom of my opening range. This guy looks kind of stationy, and this guy 3-bets a bit, so maybe I could just fold the King 2 off there, but it's quite close. I think he's a passive, sort of weaker player. So I'm going to fire this flop and expect to get enough folds, make it fairly small. Again, there's no reason. We're trying to fold out King High and worse, we don't need to make it big here. I think he'll call the flop with Ace High though as well, so, and we're ahead of some straight draws and flush draws, so I'm going to actually go ahead and bet the turn just to get Ace High to fold, and to get value from straight draws and flush draws, funnily enough, but mainly to get Ace High to fold, or possibly a hand like 3s, 4s, 2s, something like that. I don't think he ever has too strong a hand when he instantly calls the flop there. I don't expect to see a 5 again. Again, like, it's a timing tell thing. Like, if someone calls the flop that quickly, they're not thinking about raising. They probably don't have a strong hand. I apologise for this, my internet seems to be struggling once again, which is unfortunate, but hopefully it'll come back in a second. I'm just going to pause the video while I resolve this internet problem. Okay, I think we're back. I was only gone for like 10 seconds. Sometimes the router sort of disconnects from the computer. It's unable to transmit properly, and both me and my flatmate have this issue, so bit of a pain in the ass. But man, have you tried phoning call centres in the UK and trying to get help? I need to do it, but it's not a fun task because they sort of designate their like the completely untrained people who just read off of a strip, like a script to the front line, these internet service providers. So you end up phoning up trying to get help for your issue, and you're dealing with these people who have no idea how to actually resolve the issue, have no authority to resolve the issue, and furthermore, like, don't really care enough to resolve the issue because they're sick of being put in this position where they can't help people, but they're taking these calls and they just sort of lose the enthusiasm. And who can blame them, really, the way these sort of companies operate? So yeah, I guess that's why I've been putting off fixing the internet recently. This was the guy that flatted the Jack 10 to my last 3-bet. I'm not going to 3-bet bluff here, my hand's just too weak, and I've been 3-betting like a maniac on this table, so probably don't have too much fold equity. Just to let you guys know, I'm still coaching. I had a couple of students this week, just sort of finished the last session of the block with them, so that's freed up some more time for me to take on more students. So definitely looking to take on some students just now. If you want any more information about my coaching service, then you can have a look at my coaching page on Grinder School, if you didn't already know that. And you can email me or PM me on Grinder School for details about rates and anything else you want to ask about coaching. I'd highly recommend coaching for anyone that wants to accelerate their learning process and wants to move up the stakes more quickly. This guy decides he's going to just min 4-bet me. I'm just going to peel it. I'm getting such a great price, and my hand can flop hands that will stack his monsters. I don't think I can shove here. I think he's often just got the nuts here, like, given how nitty he is, but he's given me such a great price here that, man, given how much is already in the pot and stuff, and I have ace-4 suited, I'm just going to peel. This is a kind of annoying flop because it puts me in a lot of trouble potentially. I'm going to check call 1 here and then check fold turns. Again, I think that he's not going to barrel me. He's either going to have a hand like kings or queens, which he'll just be checking back now, or he's going to have a hand like a better ace, or if he has air, I don't think he'll be barreling too often here either. So I think check call 1 in this weird 4-bet pot scenario and fold the turn is probably optimal. He checks back. Can I get value on the river? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. It's kind of dodgy. Like, I kind of just want to check fold the river. I'm not sure I can get any value here. I'm going to make a small river value bet and see if I can get him to peel it with kings or queens, because I feel like when he checks back the turn, he just doesn't have ace king or any of his value hands. This guy flats my 4-bet and then leads. I have a note that he's very spazzy. It seems very strange to be leading an ace here. Just seems kind of ridiculous. I don't know really what to make of that. I think I'm just going to call and call it off. I have this tag on him to indicate he's done something in the past that was kind of dumb. On ace x, does he really lead an ace here? Or flat my 4-bet with it? I don't think so. I just don't really believe him. Now we turn the nuts, so, well, kind of the nuts. Almost the nuts. I'm going to check back, and there's only one bet left, basically, and allow him to shove the river as a bluff if he wants to. I think that's easily the best line here. Rather than shoving the turn, just leave his range as wide as we can, and then I'm going to tank and jam the river and hope to get called by whatever the hell he has. I don't even think he has anything here, so that's unfortunate, but we'll see. The turn's definitely a check, just because we need to leave his range as wide as we possibly can. But that's just very strange, like the flop lead, I just don't believe it in the slightest. I think it's just him with air, just spazzing the hell out. I don't think anyone leads an ace there at all. I just don't see it happening. So ace jack, we've been over these spots a million times, but it's a call because we can't 3-bet for value and we don't want to bluff a hand this strong that we can just defend, and he's hardly ever c-betting as well, so it's another good spot to lead. We can just pick up the pot like a large amount at the time, and he's not going to be c-betting very much. and we have equity if he calls us, and it's just, yeah, it's a good spot to lead. Also, my draw's not so strong that I'm worried about being raised off my hand. It's not like one of these situations where I'm worried about raise folding. My equity isn't that good. I can't check call the flop, and I don't want to check raise the flop because his c-betting range will be too strong there, basically, because he doesn't c-bet very often, so it's a very clear lead in that situation. But most of you would probably check just because you haven't yet opened your mind to the wonders of donking and need to think outside the box a little bit more, probably. I don't mean that in a sort of patronising, condescending way, but it's just the case that a lot of people miss these things, and no, if no one teaches you these things, then you're not going to know them. And I've had to learn these from stronger players who, players who think outside the box and beat the games because they do things that other people don't. Like, the reason that you beat a game is not because you do the same shit as every other reg, it's because you have picked up on things that other regs are missing, other than beating the fish. That's obviously another reason that you beat the game. But you've picked up on a lot of this stuff that other regs are like completely missing. I'm going to donk here. I think this guy's straightforward. I think he's just going to fold to me a lot when he has air and not know how to react to it, and I have a whole host of cards that I can barrel, that not being one of them. But any sort of 10, 9... club, king, queen, like half the deck I can barrel on that board. It's such a good board, like backdoor draw wise, that I feel like I'd just much rather, and I think that a guy like that's just fairly passive. He's just been in a sort of bullshitting situation with me. We've been messing around. I don't think he's gonna bluff raise me on that board. I think it just looks too much like I'm trying to induce him to or something. So I think the donk is good there as well. I think it's another really good spot. I could check raise again. I think that's fine, but the only problem with check raising is I just rep very little, and maybe that causes him to do stuff, because all I rep is sets basically, and maybe like ace jack perhaps, but like probably just sets. So I rep almost nothing by check raising, but by donking I can rep a lot of top pair that isn't going to fold and things like that. So I think donking again is the best play in that situation too. So yeah, some interesting spots in this video. Questions or comments, please leave them on the thread, and I will write you a lengthy reply if applicable, or a yes or no answer if that's what you want. And I think we'll stop the video here. I think we've been going for a while, so yeah. Alright, so questions or comments on the thread, and I'll see you guys next time, and good luck at the tables. Thank you.